Perhaps you've seen it. Maybe in a dream. A murky, forgotten land.
Hello there, Sarah from 17 once again. This is some Dark Souls 2 PvP. I am back in the arena. I am using dual whips, and it is on the same build that you've seen in all my early PvP footage, because this is technically just a little bit of fun and dipping the toe into the player versus player pool. Not to be taken too seriously or overanalyzed, guys. This is just some early experiences that I thought I'd share with you. Because on Dark Souls 1, I have a very extensive series where I showed you pretty much every single fight I did in PvP, from my very first invasions all the way up to when I was a lot more experienced with the game. And I went from being the innocent honor, aspiring to have the game almost like a Street Fighter kind of player, to just realizing that Dark Souls was never meant to be balanced, and it was always going to devolve into, everybody doing kind of what the hell they wanted to, and then little cliques and little niche communities of people aspiring for better things. So I wanted to do something not quite the same, because the knowledge from Dark Souls 1 will transfer over to this, but the game is different. So my intentions were simple. I'm going to show you my first experiences with each of the parts of the online components, and then I'm going to be a little bit more selective in the footage that I share, because Dark Souls 2 is, I don't think it's as enjoyable to watch as the first game, because I just think it's a little bit slower. At times it can just be a little bit more colour by the numbers, not quite as exciting. So some of the fights just aren't, what they were. And I don't want people to get bored with it, because I want to, cover it for quite some time, because I do really enjoy it. So instead what's going to happen is I'm not going to just show you my wins, guys. I've never been that kind of guy. It's not my job here to try and persuade you that I'm a good player. It's never been about that. What it is to show you my experiences when I fight other players. It's kind of always been about just the experience. There are times when I'm going to play really well. There are times when I'm going to play horrifically. And I think the balance of those two things is key to making a fun video. As we come up against a guy who I'm obviously lagging with, because he did a backstab on thin air just then, and thank God it didn't hit me. So this is just part of the honest phase of showing you pretty much everything in these sessions, but afterwards it's going to be a mixture of the best and the worst, and just try and keep it quite fun. And that right there, boom. If you've ever played Dark Souls 1, the fire whips, you generally had a second or two as the spell started to roll through them and get around them, but that was the first time I'd ever seen fire whip from the other side, and Jesus Christ, did it catch me by off guard, and it just really took me out. This is another fight that takes me off guard. He's using the red iron twin blade, which is the heaviest and one of the most strength dependent twin blades you can use, and it's not that much of an impressive weapon, but it does do damage, and it can hit quite a lot when done correctly. And he pulls out, I don't even know what that spell is. Is it like Soul Barricade or something daft? Like Soul Spear Barrage? I'm not entirely too sure. What I do know is, though, that guy was healing, and I wasn't punishing him correctly, which is something you're going to have to watch out for, guys, because there's a lot of people healing in the arena because they allow you to do it, and when something is allowed, it's going to be done, and I will never understand that decision. You could not heal in the arena in Dark Souls 1, but in this one you can. It's strange. And I'm up against another person who's of rank 2, I believe, and he's using a combination of hexes. He's got the King's Shield, which you need King Vendrick's Soul to make, and luckily enough for me, I was able to clean him up with some double whip play. Ooh, this is an important one, guys. Watch this. This is a dude who has a buff, has a ton of ton of armor, sorry, and he is literally running forward and just going for the stun lock. He's got the poise ring on, he's got a great shield that he never uses, so I don't know why he's carrying it, and there's nothing really I can do. I can't interrupt him, I can't seem to stun him, he's doing way more damage than me, and it's just one of those fights where you get kind of frustrated that what could I have done better? And I know exactly what I could have done, and there are a few different strategies for it, but I just wasn't really set up for it at the time. We're going to fight him a little bit later on in this session again, and I immediately recognise him, I immediately recognise how he's going to play, and I'm going to show you the technique of how to beat a person like that. This guy, though, I love this dude. Look at this, man. He's wearing massive armour, he's swinging a massive sword, and that's what I love about Dark Souls. When you come up against somebody who's committing to a build such as that one, like this one here, I have no respect for this player at all. He might be the nicest person in the world, but as soon as I see somebody using, you know, hexes and a buff on a katana, you just know that they're coming here to absolutely destroy, because look how much damage they do. That was, what, 1/3 of my life in one swing on a weapon that swings really fast, and it doesn't even have to touch you because of the phantom range, and then he finishes me with a hex. And don't get me wrong, played well, he's probably a good player, but, you know, if you're such a good player, don't use all that shit. You know, prove that you're a good player by using something that you're not seeing everybody else use. And this is not me telling people what to use, it's just if you really want to prove that you're as good as you think you are, maybe try it without the most powerful buff on a super fast weapon, because it just doesn't give anything to me. Like, I could be fighting whoever people think is the best PvP player in the world. If he's using a setup like that, what's to respect? Like, I would rather die to a broadsword, you know, like an unbuffed broadsword that's used expertly than the most amazing spacing on a buff katana, like what you see in me fight here quite a lot. And it's just a personal preference. Like, if you're a katana guy who loves to buff, there's nothing wrong with that, dude. It's just, there's no respect in it, and you're probably going to get a lot of hate mail because people don't enjoy it. And never stop doing it because people don't enjoy it. Just be aware that, you know, I get people who fight me, and they say how much they're a big fan and stuff, and how they want to set up duels. I get requests for duels on Dark Souls games since I started putting up PvP videos pretty much every day. Like, between YouTube and my Xbox account, I get maybe like 3 requests every day to set up a duel, to either teach them how to play better, to fight them because they want to fight me, or because they think they can beat me up type of deal. You know, they want to prove themselves and all this kind of stuff, which is all good and well. But I mentioned a very long time ago, not only is my internet terrible, so I can never arrange any of these duels, even if I wanted to, but also I get so many requests, it's just not fair. You know, I can't be selective and pick certain people. Like, I always tell people the same thing. I'll probably see you in Lordran or Drangleic, you know, and if you bump into me, we can have a good fight, and, you know, anybody can beat anybody at any given time on a Dark Souls. That's the reply I usually give. But one person I bumped into in the forest, this is quite some time ago, it just comes to mind, who said they were a massive fan of mine, and he was with his buddy in the forest ganking, and I invaded them. I fought them, and they killed me, and they taunted, they did all the standards, you know, gank affair, and then they sent me messages apologising, saying, you know, oh, we didn't mean to, we love your videos, all this other stuff, and they said, if you invade again, we'll fight one-on-one, we'll have a really good fight, and I'll show you that I can be a good player, and all this other stuff. And at this point, I'm just thinking, what are these people on about? You know, I want to kill some people in the forest, let's just get this over with. And I invaded that person again, and they proceeded to do nothing but try to backstab me with a rapier and a hornet ring. And it was just that moment of, you said you wanted to prove your skill to me, you said you wanted me to respect you, and all you're doing is fishing for a backstab with a high critical weapon. And it's that kind of mentality that I really don't understand, how anybody can think that they're earning respect that way. And to a lot of people, this is overthinking the game, you know, this is taking it too serious, because there's a lot of people that just, you know, they look at it as a game, they don't think about any of that kind of stuff, and they'll just get on with it. But, you know, I have a lot of fun with these titles, and earning my respect is a pretty big thing. Buffs and all that kind of stuff are just not the way to do it. And I would never want people to stop playing the way they want to play just because of what somebody said, because I'm a firm believer that you should kind of, you know, do what you want to do. Like these last few fights, this one, the one before it, people have been hitting me with the Ring of Thorns, which you might not be used to seeing, but you'll see it a lot when you play, guys, because it's a very strange ring that is incredibly dangerous, and I've equipped it a few times in some of these sessions, but for the most I take it off because I don't like how it looks. Instead, I've been using the Old Sun because I really like that ring. And there was a person in a comment on a previous video who just left like a paragraph of hate towards the ring, like insulting me, insulting the way I played, saying, you know, that if I was really good at PvP I wouldn't need this ring and all this other stuff. And they further, you know, apologized in a way and then went on to say some really stupid stuff. But I'm not really wanting to highlight this person at all. But these two rings, the Ring of Thorns and the Old Sun ring, are getting a lot of hate, and so much so that the most recent patch has tweaked them, it's nerfed them, which I don't really understand too much. I never had too much problem with them. My main problem is that they exist. I think they could have been implemented in such a more interesting way. Like the Ring of Thorns, why couldn't they change it so that there's a way to proc it, there's a way to trigger it, and you can control it? Because that way there would be skill involved, as opposed to a random number generator controlling things. And for a lot of people, you know, who don't really see what the big deal is, as I get lit up there by this dude using a spear. The problem with it is it can do over 1,000 damage. Over 1,000 damage on an automatic counterattack from something that perhaps shouldn't have even done anything, and you can get it on the first hit. It's not the third hit of a combo, it can literally be the first hit. And I know this more than most because on my Soul Level 1 playthrough, I put it on against the Throne Defenders. Anybody who hasn't tried Soul Level 1 yet, Throne Defenders are arguably the hardest boss in the game, because you roll as shit, you've got no iframes, and they've got big combos, they've got wide sweeping attacks. They're really tough. So I decided to use that ring. And the first swing of the Watcher's hit triggered the attack, and because that character was close enough to me in mid-combo, I hit them with all three of the like knives it fires out, the thorns it fires. Like, just then, you saw it. And you see the damage? That was 740 damage off of a counter hit that I didn't control, the game did. And against the Throne Watcher, it took a third of its life on a new game cycle. Like, that's how powerful that ring can be in the right, you know, hands, or in the right circumstance, because it's nothing to do with the player, really. And the person that made the point about the ring, you know, insulting and everything that he did, what he said was on the money. You know, the ring itself is rewarding people who aren't earning the damage, which is right, but the way he said it was just disgusting. It was the internet 101, you know, like the place is a fucking sewer when it wants to be, and it's really unfortunate because there's a lot of nice people who do want to have decent conversations that don't involve insulting each other. This is an interesting fight right now because we're both kind of spacing, both trying to get the hit on each other, and I managed to get the last hit there. But how do you feel about these rings? You know, how do you feel about people using the most powerful, you know, setups to get quick wins, and what earns your respect? Because I think everybody has a different opinion on this and a different standard, and not that it's that important, but I'm always curious to see what people are thinking and how it's affecting them. But thank you for watching anyhow, guys. There's going to be quite a lot in this session because the whips do last quite long. I experiment with a lot of them, and hopefully they're fun to watch because I think they're really fun to use. They're probably my favourite weapon so far. But thank you for watching, and you take care now.